Dr. Justine Lemos. I'm here with Scarlett Trillia, and we are rolling through season 2. We had some problems with our episode and the sound quality last week with our episode on Panchakarma. We'll re-put that up, reinstate. I don't know the word.
Re-upload, I think, is
Re-upload. Okay, we will re-upload that content for you as soon as we are able to without the gaps in it. But we're here today and we're talking about Jyotish, Ayurveda, Tantra, and specifically yoga. Specifically today, we wanted to talk about lineage and why lineage is important and what lineage is, what our lineage is, and dive right into that.
yeah, and it's something we've hinted at or alluded to in the past, and I was realizing we didn't actually get into very much depth or specifics, and just how important this is to kind of the bigger picture in so many ways. So I'm looking forward to this episode.
And I also wanted to just make a statement that 2 days ago was Ganesh Chaturthi, which is the fourth day after the new moon, specifically in this month, that is celebrated as the birthday of the god Ganesh, who is the remover of obstacles and also the creator of obstacles. So Jai Ganesha, and what a wonderful time to talk about lineage.
Lovely.
Lovely. So let's dive right in. The Sanskrit term that I want to talk about today is in our WTF is that segment is what is parampara? And parampara literally means from one to another, a chain or a succession or a passing down. And in yoga, in tantra, in Ayurveda, parampara is how wisdom flows from teacher to student to student to student to generation to generation. It's like a living current or a transmission, or sometimes it's called a golden chain that carries the juice of the practice and also its quirks of practice, but the fingerprints. And it is in part like the humanity of everyone who's ever held the tradition.
Oh, I
Oh,
love that. I like that. I wasn't distracted, but I was. So we chatted a little bit about this before the episode, and we do want to go deep on this concept and into our own lineage, but we will not abandon our connection to the Jyotish. And I was kind of just
yeah.
taking a little look at the sky in my mind as we're preparing to have this conversation. And again, we can become very tangential and non-linear in these conversations, but I
But
have
that's
a
what people are here for.
that's what they're here for. They love the ADHD, and I think we manage it very well. It's exciting and interesting. I went on a walk with somebody yesterday, and I started pointing out all of the plants and their medicinal properties, and they were like, "Wow, you know a lot about plants." I was like, "You don't even know." Just because I have the social skills to sort of control how much I want to tell you about these plants and those stars and stuff. Yeah.
I read something that like for neurodivergent people, like telling you about our subject of interest is our number one love language. And I think that that may be the truth. Like
Yeah.
let me please info dump on you everything I know about this one thing, and that is me telling you that I love you.
It really truly is. If you have an enthusiastic person in your life who takes you on a walk and starts picking plants and crushing them and holding them up to your nose so you can smell the different properties, and then you explain historically how those are put into use for different medicinal and recreational purposes, that person loves you. For
or
sure.
or
Yeah.
if you have a child, or if you have a child who's very interested in this one particular music composer that's composed this whole performance art piece, and they want to tell you about all of the secret symbolic knowledge in those musical pieces for 4 hours on a hike without pausing, you listen.
Yeah, you listen
Because that is them saying, I love you over and over and over again.
and if we really want to break this down, curveball podcast. This, if you really want to break it down, when someone who is neurodivergent is telling you things that they really care about, it means that they feel safe.
That's right.
Which is a sign that is like a foundation of love. It means that they
Yes.
feel safe, and it means that they think that you are even vaguely intelligent enough to relate to them, which is a very high compliment.
It's a very high compliment. This is true love right up in here.
They have, which means
Yeah.
that if you are listening to this podcast, we love you.
We love you so
We
much.
love you because we're telling you things that we have been ridiculed for being enthusiastic about in certain social contexts.
Absolutely. And shamed for our deep knowledge of astrology and Ayurveda. I also like that meme that's like, why many men get triggered by astrology is it's the only thing they can't mansplain.
Yep. Another curveball. We won't take that one.
All right. All right. So looking at the Jyotish and thinking about lineage, you know.
Oh yeah, I got this one.
Bring it. Come on. Sun is in Magha. Sun is in Magha. And we just had new moon in Magha. And that's all about ancestral lineage.
It is all about ancestral lineage, and the moon in Magha for the two of us also is like, well, and K2 being placed there with the sun and then the new moon. It's like spiritual leaders to the front. This is our time. Get on the mic. Exactly. It's so fun.
Exactly.
Okay, so Jupiter, the guru to the sun, the guru to the kind of leader of this system, in a sense, the wisdom teacher of the king, is doing some really interesting things. He is finishing a transit through Gemini. I didn't realize this was going to happen. Gets all the way to exaltation in
Yes.
Cancer, and then
Yes.
retrogrades out
Heads
of
on back.
exaltation all the way back through Gemini. We're going to be talking on rewind. We're going to have to redo the whole podcast. We're like, run that shit back. We're going to
So
explain
like
it
this
again.
this episode that we recorded last week, it's just
Yeah,
like
it's
there
gonna
are
have to be done
problems with the
again.
sound files.
It's because I wasn't there. It's
Well, of
because
course.
you missed me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jupiter's gonna retrograde. It's gonna go to exaltation. That's so exciting for us because it's like the teacher of the king is in its highest placement, but then it's gonna go backwards all the way through Gemini, all the way back into Taurus. What? That's like
What?
what? And then it's gonna turn direct, and it's gonna go back through Taurus, where it had
Through
just been,
Tau-
all the way back through Gemini again, and then back to exaltation. And so, in a way, this is like, if your brain synapses can make this connection, this is like us, a perfect time for us to look back on our lineage.
That's
And
right.
then-
Yeah,
and it's like,
absolutely.
How did this information get to us, and how does it move back up to source, and then how does it come back down from source again? And I think
Right.
it's
Yeah.
these are conversations
Up and
that-
down the world tree, or up and down the Mount Meru of the spine, up and down through this. And because, Gemini is Mercury sign, and Mercury is the staff, right? Mercury carries a staff, and it is that ability to travel betwixt and between the worlds and to carry knowledge betwixt and between the worlds. So here we have Guru, Jupiter in Gemini, carrying the knowledge, carrying the lineage, carrying the dharma.
Yeah, forwards
I like
and
it.
backwards. I like it too. So,
So,
and we get to talk about our teachers. This is fun.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's not about who owns the knowledge. This is about continuity of breath and practice across time. And a teacher teaches because they embody it. And the student doesn't learn, they catch it. like a fire from a candle. And, parampara is embodied, it's oral, it's ritual, it's relational, it's alive. And this is why I'm not saying it's not possible. Like transmission happens online, transmission happens via sound, via breath, and it is through the audio touching that transmission happens. But there's all these different ways. I happen to have written a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles on the transmission of tradition, so I'm kind of passionate about this subject. And there are different ways that tradition can be substantiated and passed on. And we tend to think in the West, I believe, we think of it as via replication. That is, I do something, I show you how to do a posture, and then you replicate it and you look like me in that posture, let's say. But in doing long-term field work in South India and then studying how tradition in a particular embodied practice, not yoga, was passed and recreated, I found that there is a time-honored system of simply sitting near and being around the teacher that establishes tradition in a way that is not via replication. And this is disruptive to the idea of how we think tradition is, and tradition, lineage, and authenticity is created in the West.
That is a really beautiful way of explaining it. And I just want to note, I've kind of just dipped my toes, but really like my whole feet. I'm kind of diving actually back into teaching after a pretty long hiatus. And I've been focused on business, and I decided, I launched a website. I just kind of put some offerings out there and immediately got invited on a retreat. So which is my favorite environment for teaching. So I got to spend three nights and 4 days, 24/7 with a small group of people, and we did a bunch of different kinds of practices. And this topic came up because people who are enthusiastic, we love them. We're enthusiastic people, and there is this desire. It's like, teach me, show me, let me replicate what you have, what you know, what you do. And we got to have the conversation about, in the past, it traditionally, and you and I have talked about this over the years, a person would spend 12 years hanging out with their potential teacher before they quote unquote were taught anything or learned anything or given any information.
Exactly.
Can we get into that a little bit? I mean, you're basically saying that right now, but
I am
like,
saying that, and
yeah,
I'm also, also that system potentially creates harm against students because of indentured kind of servitude and teachers withholding knowledge.
yeah,
The system that we have in the West is potentially abusive to the teachers themselves because so much is taken and not very much is given. But we need to be careful in this conversation, even as we talk about our teachers, that lineage is not just like this flex of like, I trained under so-and-so who trained under so-and-so whose photo I keep on my altar. And it becomes this like spiritual Rolodex or like a brand logo, right? As if depth is a receipt that we can show. And also as Westerners, who are deeply involved in a science that has its origins in a different cultural milieu, that we especially aren't using those teachers who are from that culture of origin as kind of calling cards of authenticity. See, I've really been to the source, right? And so I'm always playing with and being aware of these issues. Parampara, the root doesn't mean certificate or clout. Parampara means flow. this flow of knowledge that's a river. It's not a trademark, right? It's like if you've had your candle lit by the flame of the teaching.
And I think that it's really significant that you said by the flame of the teaching and not the flame of the teacher.
Yes, exactly right.
That's a very specific call out that I just wanted to emphasize. It's like
Though teachers are very, very, very important, right?
essential, and they are not at the same time. It's
Right.
like, yeah. Well, and I think that this is, of course, this is a perfect place to observe binary opposites. Culture and geography are massively important and not the point. Like the transmission, right? Transmission
Correct.
must occur through a teacher, but it's the teaching that you're receiving.
Yes.
And but they can't be separated. And so it's also an illusion of opposites. And I think that's why I really wanted to talk about this because they're like learning about teaching is a whole lesson in and of itself that and there's just so much here. I think well, maybe we can give, we haven't really, and I like that we haven't really said, we don't say the names of our own teachers very often, but we do to each other. Um, because it's not like there's like tremendous respect and I guess respect is kind of the best word, tremendous like reverence for these people, and yet again, interestingly, they don't come up in conversation very much because they're not accolades.
Right, exactly. Because we come from this kind of, I don't want to say weird lineage,
It's too
but this
super weird.
lineage,
It's fine.
it's
It's super weird.
super weird, right? And it isn't like these big sage on a stage. That's not what we come out of, right? Of these big billionaire, millionaire franchise teachers,
No.
because that's not what we do. So our root teacher of, I would call our root teacher, though I practiced much yoga before encountering this teacher, but he really, I think of as my root teacher of postural yoga is our teacher Scott Miller. And Scott Miller is down in Southern California. He is our teacher of deep inquiry into Hatha Yoga. And he studied with, Krishnamacharya is the grandfather of modern postural yoga as it comes into the West. There are a few other currents, but Krishnamacharya is the major one. And Krishnamacharya was the teacher and father-in-law of Iyengar. He taught Sri Patabi Joyce, who then pioneered or recreated from the Yoga Karunta text, Ashtanga Yoga. And then he was the father of Desikachar, who created Vinyoga, which then really is the roots of therapeutic and Ayurvedic yoga practice. And Scott Miller studied in all three of these pathways, and then in turn passed that flame to us. And so I see very much Scott as our root teacher of yoga, but not in the sense that people might think of that.
Well, it's with
But
very little fanfare that passing occurred. And I think that in the United States in particular, I don't even want to say we, the dominant culture of that nation, which I'm not in right now, so I feel a bit abstracted from it, is one of much fanfare
yeah,
and much public appearance and external, if not superficial, identity. And this
Yes.
isn't a negative judgment, it's a statement of fact as I perceive it. And when Scott, I believe I may have been in his last group training, and then we kind of carried on without him. I don't know what it's
Last group training with me,
with you.
not
Okay.
last one altogether.
Okay. The last one that he did with you before you kind of became more independent occurred in a very isolated place, in a
Yeah.
pretty humble building with a lot of
Yeah.
quirks and a fairly small group of people, and without anything very shiny.
No, nothing.
There was, and with very little, if any, documentation. I don't believe we took any photographs, and it
Like
wasn't
I
by
think there's one or two photographs from that whole training. It's like us sitting around a harmonium.
yeah. And maybe faces are not even clear, kind of thing. And this wasn't a conscious value-based decision that we made as a group or anything like that. It just simply was not the point of that group
Exactly.
of people coming together. And in a way, also, there was no fanfare with regards to the kind of passing of the baton, after which time you taught many more trainings, and then we kind of facilitated similar small, strange groups of people after that. But it wasn't like Scott was like, I now bestow upon you, with my permission and great grandeur, the next phase of a. It's like it's all like retrospective almost. When we
Exactly.
look back at the way that this has unfolded. The background noise on your end, by the way, is very on point. It reminds me of a
It's very
story.
on point, but unfortunately, we had a bandsaw. There's some construction upstairs, of course, and the water was off today. There was a bandsaw when I recorded the last one, and the software is so smart that it takes it out
It does.
magically.
If you listen, I knew it was there, so I listened very carefully to that recording, and it's like a high-pitched hum in the background, but
Awesome.
it's quite effective. But the reason why I said that, it's almost like Scott's in the room with us right now, because weren't you
Being
telling
like,
me about
hey,
well, that and the wasn't there a tap studio above his yin yoga
yes.
studio?
Oh my God. He was doing yin yoga and there was a tap dance studio upstairs and just like nonstop on
Nonstop.
people's heads. Yeah, yeah. So interesting what happens. Like I was giving a woman a treatment of Tibetan cranial adjustment yesterday and they were like drilling into the ceiling and she was like, I don't think I can handle this. And I was like, that's fine. You can leave. And as soon as we got her on the table and settled in, it got silent,
Exactly.
and we didn't hear from it at all. And so these things are always what we call nimitta or omen, all around us at all time. But we have to be very clever to know what the nimitta is and what it's representing. I would be remiss, however, if I did not speak a little bit about my earlier indoctrination, enculturation, which started in 1995 when I met my guru of classical Indian dance, whose name is Sri Ranjana Devi, Guru Ranjana Devi. And via her teaching, I embarked on a 20 plus year study and performance of two forms of classical Indian dance and was living in India to do research on dance. But it's really via dance because through dance, I never sat down and learned these myths that I'm sharing. I've never, maybe I've read them somewhere along the way, but it wasn't like I, studied them in a book sense or in a class on religion or something. But it was via dance that I came to learn about mythology, that I came to learn about mudra, about hand gestures and sacred pathways, that I learned the subtle anatomy of the body because yoga and dance are very much aligned, and so there's that route that very much opened the doorway to these teachings for me. And so I come in via this dance tradition and musical tradition into the current or stream of the Vedas and the Tantras. So
What a
there's
way,
that.
what a way to
Huh?
come into it. What a way to
Yeah,
come in.
absolutely, like
Yeah.
full bodied. And the Ayurveda is also very interesting. So I was living in South India doing research for my doctoral degree, and we became very good friends with this young man whose father was the first Muslim Ayurvedic pharmacist in South India. And Ayurveda and Ayurvedic pharmacology is traditionally held by the Hindu community. And he's Muslim and had this Ayurvedic pharmacy. He had gone to Ayurveda school in part because of the liberal politics of Kerala in South India. And it was very, very hot. And I would go and hang out in the pharmacy all day long because it was very cool temperature. And there were these women there who were like village women who were sitting and rolling Ayurvedic pills and like cooking herbs over a fire. And like there's just spices around, and like this cement pharmacy in the rice paddies with some coconut trees around. And I drink coconuts like taken from the coconut trees, and just hang out in this very like calm space. India's really can be really harsh. There's a lot of hustle, a bustle, people, dirt, diesel, loud noises, and this became this kind of refuge. And that was my introduction to Ayurveda. Like not at all any kind of formal teaching, but just colloquial kind of village teaching. Like, but it wasn't a pharmacy, but like, like don't get your head exposed in the sun, right? Because the crown of the head is very hot and it can increase pitta dosha, but I didn't have that language for it, right? And we would like eat Ayurvedic, so-called Ayurvedic food in that context, and just kind of, again, started living this lifestyle, oiling, without really knowing what it was. And then it wasn't until much later that I took formal training in Ayurveda. And one of our root teachers in Ayurveda is Dr. Paul Douglas, who is an MD, a Chinese medical doctor, and an Ayurvedic doctor. And did training with him in pulse work, in tongue work, in face work, in the anatomy of Ayurveda, in herbology. And so that's one of our roots of Ayurveda. And then, he also introduced me to Jyotish, to Vedic astrology, because that was part of his learning. And many, if not most, Ayurvedic practitioners, Vaidjas, physicians, consultants, what have you, don't have knowledge of Vedic astrology. But in my training as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I was trained to look at the Vedic astrology first, or at least at the same time as you're taking pulse, as you're looking at tongue. And then me being me, and that neurodivergent thing that we spoke to at the very beginning, if we start to get into something, we're going to go really, really deep with it, right? And at first, actually, in my study of Ayurveda, the Jyotish was quite overwhelming to have at the same time, because I was trying to get a handle on like all of this Ayurvedic terminology, all of this Ayurvedic information, and it was kind of like, whoa, I can't deal with Saturn and Jupiter layered on top of this. This is too much for me. And then after years of being really immersed in Ayurveda and its knowledge, I started to get deeper and deeper into Jyotish. And, I've had several really amazing Jyotish teachers along the way, and done a lot of training with very prominent Jyotish teachers. But I always say that actually, I can't.
I can't hear your voice.